There we go. Host privileges over to you, Bruce. Mike.
Please do, because I'm probably going to want to share my screen, and in fact,
Yeah,
I'm going to start that now because I'm going to want to share some recordings.
cool. There you go. Enjoy, everybody. Thank you for signing up.
Thank you. We'll be done in about 4 hours. We'll see you then.
Great.
Perfect. Great. Well, thanks for coming to this. This has been fun, uh, kind of drilling down on different aspects of old time music. With each of these classes, but they all kind of hone in on the same thing, which is just kind of learning the language of the music to me, and learning music in an oral tradition. I know some of you have been in workshops with me before, and I like I like to keep context and history in the conversation, and I think it's one of the things that of all the things that can teach us to kind of sound like the old time, get that old time sound. It's really just listening to how the old players played, and some of it is so subtle, some of it is magic, some of it just are the kinds of things that creep into your playing over a long period of time, and and that's certainly been the case for me. I would never make the claim to sound like any of the old players in particular, although at this point in my playing life, um, it's more about references and respecting the really interesting things that people did, you know, in the tradition. So what I was hoping to do today is to just look at this music from the angle of ornamentation, and if you will, kind of dressing the music up a little bit so that it is spoken with a better accent, if you will. If you'll go with me with the notion that music is like spoken language, then we have all those same kind of elements in our playing that we have in our speech. You know, um, rises and falls in pitch, accents, ornaments, slang, if you will. I grew up in the South Bronx, and we had a way of speaking, and I haven't lived there in a long time, but I can conjure that back up, and I can hear it in my head, and it just becomes kind of part of who you are. And you want these things kind of in your musical language too. So I've kind of listed up a few recordings. I'd like to play you a few little snippets, and just kind of look at some of these different elements you can add to your playing. I've picked out a few tunes that are real straightforward that we can use and try some of these things in. And the way I teach, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Um, but the way I teach is just in short phrases. It's muscle memory. It's a thinly veiled ear training exercise, if you will. And we'll take the tunes and start with melody and piece them together and try some of these different sorts of ornaments, see how they feel, see if they make sense. And hopefully you have a couple of three tunes at the end of the workshop. Um, if you have, please keep yourselves muted. But if you have, the best workshops are the ones that include conversation and questions. So if you have a question, wave at me, unmute yourself, uh, interrupt me. Pardon me, I've had a cup of coffee, so I'm going to go on and on and on unless you stop me. And and I want this to be useful, and I want it to make sense for everybody. Um, One thing about uh, workshops like this is that, and especially since we're on computers and I don't get to hear each of you play, is that I really don't know what level everybody's at, and I want this to be a useful exercise. So I'll teach these tunes. I want you to just focus on one thing at a time. We'll start with melody, which is the priority, and the phrasing and the breath, and then we'll maybe do a little something with bowing. And if you've got the melody in your left hand, if you've got that muscle memory, add some of the bowing, and then we'll build it up from there. Um, and just get what you can get. And I'll try to present it in sort of a priority order, best we can. But once again, ask questions. Um, So, okay, where should we start? I'm going to start with something that kind of eludes me, and I don't use it a lot in my playing. And it's probably the simplest thing, if you'll even call it an ornament. And those of you who play classical music might not even consider it an ornament. I'm talking about just about vibrato. And you know, most of the old time fiddlers that I learned to play from, or whose recordings I listened to, use vibrato kind of at the end of a line just to accent or to ornament. But unlike other kinds of music where you hear vibrato all the way through, and it's that sort of technique, I want to play you a recording of, his name was Fiddlin' Sam Long, and this is recorded in 1924. So the fidelity is about what you'd expect in 1924. Um, and he was a Missouri fiddler. Give me a sec to get this up here. He was a Missouri fiddler. He was a champion contest winning guy. He made a very few recordings, and just listen to the way he articulates the melody. And I think this would be fun, actually kind of a fun tune to start with. Some of you may play it already, but we can pound through it. It's called Seneca Square Dance. So I could go on and on about what I think is interesting and beautiful about that. You probably hear me better like this. Um, Sorry about that. I forgot the mic was over there. Uh, and you know, the phrasing, the 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 melody being played in a G scale against a C chord. So hearing that dissonance and hearing that kind of major seven feel, and just all these things that add up to making this music sound like what it does. But you might have noticed that at the ends of some of the phrases and the beginnings of some of the other phrases, there was just this little kind of lazy vibrato that was really expressive and really sounded kind of like human speech. and I guess that's why I kind of picked this tune out. Um, so, how many of you played this already? Some of you? A few? Do you mind going through it with a little different sort of approach? Um, Great. We're going to be in. We're going to start in the key. We're in the standard tuning, G D A E, in key of G. And if you have electronic tuner, that's great. Um, I tuned to mine before we got online here. If you need an A, here's your internet A. And the way I hold a fiddle, I don't dare tell anybody how to hold the fiddle with their left hand because I'm self-taught and because I support the fiddle with my left wrist most of the time, which works well for old time fiddling, but not for a whole lot of other things. But that affects how you do a vibrato. We'll get to the vibrato in a minute, though. Let's run through the tune. It's a two-part tune, and let me play the A part through for you slowly. Listen for the phrase for the structure of it. It's A B A C. First and third phrase are the same. Second and fourth phrases are different but similar, and it's typical form for these kind of tunes. Sam Long was from Missouri, and the Missouri style is very single note and very metric and square sounding in most instances. So here's the A part. So here's the first phrase, and we're going to go through each of these phrases. Then second phrase. Third phrase, same as the first. And finally, okay, so going from the top, I'm going to leave off the pickups and just start on the downbeat so that it's clear and we don't get off on the wrong rhythmic foot here. We're just going to play. Now, if you're accustomed to hearing kind of the jam session version of this tune, there's a little rhythmic hiccup that kind of got lost somewhere in the evolution of this. And if you listen to the Sam Long recording, you'll hear it. Most people these days, and it's fine if you want, play, but it's really this. So let's just cycle that a little bit, and then we can add the pickups later when we need them. And if learning this way is new to you, sing the notes. Don't worry about operating the machinery. Learn the melody first, and then make that relationship between what you sing and what's on the fiddle. If you can sing it, you can play it. So once again, it's. Everybody okay with that so far? Pretty straightforward. Let's add the second bit, and then we can cycle this for a while and just get it in muscle memory. Here's the second phrase. Is that pretty clear at this point? Because we're going to cycle through it. If you have any questions, please stop me. Here's the, so that's the first half of the A part of the tune, okay? And putting it all together, this is it. Now I'm going to add a pickup. Just the A. Right here. And this actually gets us 3/4 of the way through the A part, because that first phrase repeats. And don't worry about the bowing just yet. Just get the melody. Here comes the first phrase again. And the last phrase, the tag phrase. Closure. Starting on A. So the second half of the A part, once again starting with that first phrase. I'll go a little slower. Once more. Any questions so far? All right, so let's just play through this a little bit. Once again, just focusing on the left hand. And then we can talk a little bit about what the bow does, and then we can add this third kind of dimension, the vibrato to it. So this is one of the great tunes. It's played so many different ways. Some people call it "Waiting for the Federals." I don't know where that title came from, but I'm pretty sure it came later. My friend Allie Bain likes to call it that. Okay, so from the top of the part, starting nice and slow, and think about these phrases like they're spoken language. Make sure to put the breath in between them. 1, 2, 3, and... One more time. Okay. So if you want to think about, making this make a little more rhythmic sense, you can bow it in a way like I do. I tend to lead most of my phrases with a downstroke. Um, there's no prescription for this, but leading into the beginning of the part, I would play down, and there's no pattern. This isn't a shuffle or anything like that. Sometimes, if you want to just imitate what somebody else is doing, the sincerest form of flattery, memorize where the slurs are. There, there. I tend to put these kind of slurs on an upstroke. So I'm playing single notes or saw strokes. Now, slur, slur. And the whole idea is to come out the other side, is to start playing down and come out the other side on an upstroke. One more time. Second phrase. Every note gets its own single stroke, so it's easy. Down, up, down, up, down, up. So you really have a kind of a melodic rhythm. You have the rhythm that you're left with when you take the melody notes away and just left with the position of the bow strokes. And it's ba-da, ba, 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 ba. It's real syncopated. It's one of those things you don't want to think too hard about. Third phrase. And now. And this, any way that you want to play it that keeps it sounding smooth. I like to play two notes, two notes, two notes, and a nice long upstroke at the end. So it's like this. So taking it back to the middle part, to the middle of the part. Once more. So those are kind of all the pieces and parts of what I think is a fairly straightforward way of bowing it. Um, would you all like to play through the A part a couple of times, just slowly, and try and work that all in together? Everybody okay? One of you looks like they're choking there. You got water? Okay. Um, okay, here we go. Start nice and slow. 1, 2, 3. let's add this one little extra element, which is just vibrating vibrato with your left hand on, well, where else are you going to vibrato from? Vibrato on the at the ends of the phrases, just to make it sound kind of fluid and make it kind of a period at the end of the sentence. I think it's really effective. Um, and if you go back and listen to that Sam Long recording, you hear him do it, and he makes it really sweet sounding. Same thing at the end of the part. Right here. And here. And you know, once again, what you might call hillbilly vibrato really just kind of comes from your wrist, and I'm just moving my just the pad of my finger, and you don't have to pick your finger up or do anything crazy, just to get that little bit of vibration in there. And you're not changing the pressure, you're just kind of rolling your finger. This is completely anathema to classical technique, so please don't confuse the two. Here. And here. I need to check one setting on my Zoom. Give me a quick second for something here. Something doesn't look right to me. Oh, I guess it is. Sorry, I obsess about the technical details sometimes. As long as you can see and hear. So there's the A part of the tune. And we have that same kind of opportunity to accentuate those long notes at the end of the phrases in the B part as well. So I hear three places where I would put a vibrato there. Now listen to the form of the B part. It's not exactly the same as the A. First phrase. Second phrase. Third is different as well. And the fourth phrase is the same as the A part fourth phrase. Okay, so let's take each of those phrases, and of course you'll have, you know, if it all doesn't go in here right now, you'll have the recording at the end of the workshop and you can take it and loop it. But here's the melody for the first phrase. So there's a little bit of pickups happening there, so it counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay. And And once again, those are pickups coming into it. And a 1. And if we old-time fiddlers weren't so lazy and I wanted to put another vibrato, I wouldn't play that last note of that phrase on the open E, but I'd actually put it on the string below so that I could vibrate it with my little finger. But I'm not, because he didn't, and I'm lazy. But you can if you want. So here are the first 2 phrases put together of the B part. And let's add the vibratos in there right now, because they're pretty obvious. Here, there. So on the G and on the B. And then okay, so now we've constructed some construction of the first half of the B part. 1, 2, 3. Once again. Third phrase. So it starts on the G, and you'll vibrate there as well. And just play that much. And finally, 3 blind mice, I'm sorry. Once again. And then your A part ending. So the B part, second half of the B part is this. Last time. So here's your B part. And the vibrato here on the B. And how about on the D? And at the end of the phrase. Just like punctuation marks at the end of a sentence. Any thoughts or questions before we play the whole thing through a couple of times? All right. I'll pick up the tempo just a smidge. So something like this. 1, 2, 3. Back to the top. In those little places where Sam Long put the vibrato, I could swear I hear him kind of swelling into the notes a little bit. In fact, I just want to check to see if I'm right or wrong about that. Um, right here. It's not just a matter of vibrating. I mean, I think that's kind of how he makes it sweet. And it could just be the fidelity of the recording, those old recordings, but I don't think so. I think that's just his expression. And those are the things that I just find it fascinating and fun to, the deeper you can dive into this stuff. And I've been diving deeply for a long time, and maybe too long, but I love just hearing those little things in there. So that's one kind of ornament that I thought was kind of interesting and that you can use in a lot of tunes. Listen to a little bit of this. This is another Missouri fiddler. His name was Art Galbraith, and this is recorded much later, and it's a better recording. There you go. Playing the kind of his crazy Missouri version of the Flowers of Edinburgh. Renata, I know you've heard this before. Um, but he has a beautiful kind of lyrical way of ending the phrase. The same idea. It's an LP. It takes a Isn't that pretty? So we can leave this, go on to something else that I use a lot in my playing. Um, I was first inspired to play the fiddle by people from North Carolina, who from Round Peak, and people like Tommy Jarrell and Fred Cockram and Ernest East. And these are all, might be just names to you, but they're worth looking up the references and listening to some of their recordings. Tommy Jarrell he was very much of a dance fiddler, although he sang with the fiddle as well. But when he played dance tunes, they were very almost aggressive sounding, and he rang a lot of open strings at once. And one really kind of cool thing that he did was a right hand bowed triplet. Does anybody here play Scottish or Irish music? All right, this is really a direct descendant of that, and just kind of the way it kind of evolved into the American kind of fiddle vernacular, if you will. I want to play you just a little clip of Tommy playing this bowed triplet, and you'll hear it at the end of the phrases. And I found a very cool YouTube video of him. And then I picked out another tune to try it on. But this is Tommy Jarrell.
Western country, the Sudan gal. What?
Let's see. Yeah, he's playing. This is probably 1975, so he would have been about 75 years old, and it was right at kind of the end of the point in his life where he was really playing strong and well. But he's a rough mountain fiddler. He was never a professional musician. Learned to play from his dad, and was a great inspiration to a lot of us. This is when they finished deciding what to play here. It's called Rockingham Cindy. It's kind of like, did anybody sing the song "Get Along Home Cindy" when they were in school? This is kind of the North Carolina version of it. But listen to what happens at the end of the phrases. He has this beautiful bowed triplet that he does. And that's what we're going to work on here in a second.
Whatever you want to call it, or we'll try Rockingham Cindy.
Which one you want?
Don't make no difference to me. I'm playing for that lady over there now. When she says quit, we'll quit.
All right.
Well, let's try old Rockingham first.
All right.
So you could hear that little bow triplet that he does in there. It's so cool. So many of people in my generation converged on him in the 1970s and 80s. And he died in 1985, and he was so welcoming and nice to everybody. But he had so many visitors at one point that he had a sign made and put it up above his kitchen door that went outside, and it said, "First 3 nights free, thereafter $15 per night." Because he had so many people camping out in his front yard and hanging around. He was something. But once again, a punctuation mark at the end of a musical sentence. So I thought of an old waltz that he played. I don't have a good recording of it, but it might be a nice one just to kind of get your feet wet with this thing a little bit. It's in the key of D, and it's actually a waltz version of a breakdown tune, a 4/4 tune that people used to call Green Willis, but he called it the Peekaboo Waltz. But it's the same melody. I'll just play a little bit of it for you, and we can learn this in a hurry and have a little time to spend with this little bowed triplet. Just a pretty little waltz. Are you game to try it? We can learn it real quick. I'll show it to you just melodically, and then we can add this trill. Same form as the last tune. Here's the A part again. First phrase. Second phrase. First phrase again. And the tag. So here's the one thing that you kind of have to get part of this music is that kind of upstroke with the pulse in it. So listen to this first phrase. Down, up, down. And going on. It's real simple. Next phrase. So starting on C sharp. So here comes the first phrase again. First phrase again, and here comes the tag. Couldn't be any more straightforward. Here's that last phrase again. Did I railroad you through that too fast? Let's play through the whole part one time. Nobody's stopping me with questions. I don't know if that's because I'm doing a really great job or because I've lost you completely. But y'all look great. I wish I could hear you. Okay, here we go, nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 1. Down, up, down. Down, up, down. Okay, so now the fun part. Now what we're going to do is this ornament usually occurs after a long downstroke, and that little bowed triplet thing is a real quick up, down, up. And uh, if you look at me, I'll try to put my camera where you can see my right hand a little better. What I'm doing is I'm playing a quick up, down, up, and I'm just trying to get a little bit of gravel out of it. It's not as extreme as, say, in Irish music, where they call it a cut, I think, where it really does sound very gravelly and the note goes away. The note's still kind of in there somewhere with this. So let's just practice playing a long downstroke followed by that triplet. It's going to sound like this. And you don't have to lean into it at all. And when I do it, what I wanted you to see in the right hand is that I really do this with my wrist and my fingers. You can't control these kind of little subtle things with the bigger muscles of your arm. You really have to have a nice loose hand. And like I mentioned, I'm self-taught, but when me and my pals were sitting around for hours at a time trying to figure out how to play this stuff, one of the things we decided very early on was to have a loose wrist. And it's good to be loose anyway when you play, but just enough muscle tension to where you can kind of control it. Because if you've been playing this music for any length of time with any kind of muscle tension at all, you've injured yourself, right? Everybody's shaking their head. I mean, I have, and I learned my lesson the hard way. When I practice the guitar, sometimes I get so into it I forget to put it down. And 2 or 3 hours later, my wife will come in the room and she said, "You better stand up now," and I do, and it hurts. So you got to stay loose, right? So we're gonna play down, up. So let's take the top of that A part. And we can put this at the end of most of these phrases. Like here. And even at the end of the part. You've got that nice, you'll notice that I'm ringing the open D underneath this too, and using it as a little bit of a drum beat. On the downbeats, I'm picking this low note up, and it works really nicely into that ornament as well. Now, if I was accompanying you on the guitar, I'd be playing an A chord, and in the case of this melody, I can ring the open E above the melody we're playing as well. So then you get a nice kind of fat, fleshed out tone there. And here. One more time. gives it a real nice swing. It's also really nice to dance to. Okay, ready for the B part? Also works perfectly at the end of those phrases too. So B part melody. And you can put that trill right in there. Right here. Okay, and then, and I like the next, once again, if I was accompanying you on guitar, I'd play a G chord. So I like to kind of hold down on the B, on the A string below, so I've got that G chord shape, and play this melody. So the melody is this. And with the double stop, so you got this. And first phrase again. An A part ending. So there's your whole B part. Trill. Trill. It's all over the place. Just use this as an exercise. I know it's a real simple tune, but it's just a kind of a good vehicle for messing with this. I got a question of my own. It's Donna who's playing the cello. How does something like this work with a cello? Does it work with a cello?
I actually, it's a 3/4 size cello, and I've got an E string on top, so it's actually tuned like a violin.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
But
it's been my COVID instrument, which I've been working on learning, and it's been super fun. So I'm learning fiddle melody with it.
that's great. It's great that you got an E string on top, because I was
Yeah,
a lot of
you
times.
have to have a smaller cello to do it. You can't do it with the full size
I
because
guess so. Yeah.
the string wouldn't work. So
Right, right. Does an ornament like this with a quick right hand, does it is it because the cello's it's a slower responding instrument. Does it seem to work?
yeah, it seems to be working okay.
That's cool. That's great. I'm
Yeah.
just curious. Yeah. Thank you. Um, so I mean it's like I say, this is a really simple, straightforward tune, but it's a nice. It's got lots of opportunities for this little trill in it. And, let's play it through one time. I'd love to teach you one more with something else going on in it after this. Uh, I remember when I first discovered this ornament in that Rockin' Ham Cindy song, I kind of gave myself nerve damage doing it too much. Just playing it everywhere I possibly could. You get addicted to these little things. Okay, so going from the top, and I'll pick it up to kind of dance tempo. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 1. Try it an octave down. Yeah. So there's ornament number 2. Cool. Any questions? All right. One more thing that I thought would be interesting, and this kind of came from an observation I made listening to some mostly Western North Carolina fiddlers. I really like the blues. I really like bluesy notes, flatted thirds, and I noticed a couple of the great players do an interesting kind of left-hand trill where they were able to sneak in a bluesy note next to one that wasn't bluesy, and it gave a beautiful contrast. And it's probably better to play it for you than to try and describe what it is. But it involves playing a left-handed trill, and that trill is just fingering one note and just touching the note above it or sometimes the note below it with a finger really quick. So something like this. You hear this a lot in Kentucky and West Virginia music as well. It's just that. But what's really interesting to me is that fiddlers like Marcus Martin and O.C. Helton, who came decades before him, had a way of just injecting this little bluesy feeling into it. And let me play you a recording just real quickly of a few seconds of Marcus Martin playing this, and see if you can't hear what I'm talking about. The tune is called Green River. Where are you? You're not there. Hang on a sec. There we go.
The title of this one, Mr. Martin? Green River.
This fiddle's tuned really low. Right there. So can you hear where he's playing a trill? He's playing a melody note. He's tuned so low. I don't know. He's got his fiddle tuned way down. This is really in G. So the melody note is B, but when he trills, you don't quite hit that B. And it's the contrast of sounds between those things. And you can hear how bluesy that is for just a split second. So let's work on just.
Let's call this a flatted trill.
Yeah, it's a flatted third in the middle of a trill. It's a sneaky flatted third trill. There's probably a. Yeah. So let's just learn that little bit of the tune. See how far we get with it. It's a crazy little tune. So we're gonna play an open G chord on the bottom just to get it ringing, and what comes after is more of a B that you would expect if you were playing with a fretted instrument or a piano, and then we're going to play the trill, and I'm kind of over accentuating the intonation of it, but so what you end up with is this. Okay. And finishing the phrase. back to the real B again, whatever that is. Now, this is what you'd call a crooked tune. So here's the last phrase, and that's really, that's pretty much of the 8 part. But here's the whole part. Does that make sense? Intellectual sense, and can you feel it? You know, if you were to play that trill, if you were to trill all the way up to the same note you were playing in the melody, it wouldn't have that same nice kind of funky tension to it. Or I'll always take the blues note in a case like this. Well, just for fun, let's just see if we can't plow through the B part. I've never taught this tune before. Wow, there's a lot in here. That's a whole bunch of phrases in that B part, but just listen to it. The first phrase is 5 beats. Second phrase, I can't count that high. And first phrase again. Second long phrase again. Just for see if you can get close to it. If you break it down, it makes some sense. Play this. Starting on the D. And then if it were a normal tune, it would end right there, but it doesn't. Once more, and then we'll complete the phrase. So there's your uneven part. Once again. Now look what we can do at the end of this phrase. Bowed triplet. So you can stick that in there too. Next phrase, I'm just going to railroad you through this. Finally, you're going to be cursing me about 3 o'clock tomorrow morning when you wake up thinking about this. So here's what leads into it. That's the whole part. That second phrase is 7 beats, so it's 5 and 7. I got an idea. I'm going to play this tune through completely, and I'm going to record it as I do it on QuickTime on another application. And then I'm going to ask, and you all play along and get what you can get of it, and I'm going to ask John Huber, our host, to forward it to you in an email, and so that you have it to play along with. I hope you'll go back. I mean, try to cover a lot of ground in these workshops, and if it seems like too much information about one thing and not enough about something else, I'm hoping that you can use.
I do like this song very much. I definitely like it.
It's a beautiful tune.
That you'll give us something as a recording.
I'm happy to, Tony. And before we get out of here, and if you don't mind just being 5 minutes late getting out of here, I want to play you my favorite recording of this tune, which I think is really beautiful. I haven't played it for you yet because it's old and really, really crunchy. But yeah, let me I'll play through the entire form of the tune, and since you're all muted, you won't be on the recording. You can play along with it, and then I see a couple of iPads here. I'll fly it into your chat box so you can download it now if you have a computer. If you don't, we'll see to it that you get it in an email later on. and maybe send you a couple of other things to listen to too. So, okay, so here goes. Green River, it's called. Okay. Top. Let me save that real quick. I didn't get a chance to teach you the third part. So it's Green River. And we'll put it there. Bear with me a sec. Can you all see something coming in your chat box? You won't if you have an iPad, and you'll get it later. But if you click on the down arrow, you can download it, which I'd recommend doing before the end of the class, so it doesn't go away. And in the meantime, let me dial up the solo recording of O.C. Helton. So this was recorded in 1924. I think it's on the earliest electric equipment. But the fiddler's name was O.C. Helton, and he played with his brother and another really great fiddler named John Diedrich Harris, and they were all from Western North Carolina. And this is O.C. Helton playing Green River solo, or I hope it is. Yeah. I'll send you that recording as well. All that background noise is because the original recording was way less listenable, and that's been really, really digitally messed with, just so you could hear the notes of it. I find tunes like that, all those flatted thirds and things like that, to be really soulful, you know. And I hope you, I hope you agree. I hope you found this workshop interesting. I've never approached it from this angle before, but talking about, you know, this is all expression, and as you probably know, I'm doing a few different kind of topics for each of these workshops. The next one is really going to be all about expression, and that's next Sunday, which is I think I called it "Making the Fiddle Speak," and the point is going to be to, you know, take melodies and look at things like these kind of ornaments and phrasing and breath and accent, and really take a melody and really try to make it tell a story, you know, because that's anybody that plays music. That's what you want to do, right? And I've been trying to figure out how to do it on 3 instruments for almost 50 years now, and I'm not sure I'm there, but I don't care. I'm getting there, you know. So yeah. So I'll send you this recording I just made for you, and then I'll send you O.C. Helton and a couple of other examples of the things that we've been listening to. I hope you've